I started deliberately misleading them. I'd sit down, you'd be at a table, it'd be a think tank table, and they'll say, you go around and introduce yourself, and these people are, I've got this designation, I got that designation. And they'd come to me and I'd say, I'm a housewife, I'm raising 4 children, and I support my husband's business. And it would be these dead looks of people looking at me, what the heck is she doing here?
Today on Strong Like a Girl, we have a guest who is someone I've watched lead long before I understood what leadership actually meant. There are people who build and shape communities, and then there are people who shape you. She's my aunt, but she's also been a quiet standard in my life for what leadership looks like. Lyn Radford is a Cree Métis leader, entrepreneur, mother of 4, board chair, builder of facilities, architect of capital campaigns, and a woman who has never been afraid of hard rooms or hard decisions. She became the first solo female chairperson of the Canada Games Host Committee. She spearheaded the building of a gymnastics facility and led a capital campaign for Ronald McDonald House. And through it all, she and my uncle ran businesses and raised a family with a seemingly guiding principle: always what's best for the community. I know she has walked into rooms where she didn't look like everyone else and still commanded respect. I know that she has made tough financial calls with compassion and discipline, and I have watched her carry responsibility without asking for recognition, even though recognition eventually came, including the Alberta Sport Hall of Fame and the Alberta Order of Excellence. She has always championed me and many others, quietly, consistently, fiercely. So today isn't just a conversation about governance, fundraising, or breaking barriers. It's a conversation about legacy, about service, and about the kind of strength that doesn't shout, it builds. Welcome to my aunt, Lyn Radford. I'm very, very pleased to have you on Strong Like a Girl.
Thank you very much, Tanya. That was when you gave me the shout out. I thought, oh my goodness, she has so many wonderful people in her life to choose from. It was such an honor. So thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have a list of women that I want to interview, actually, and you've always been on that list. And so it just keeps growing, that list. I tell you, somebody asked me if I was going to interview any men, and I said, well, as soon as I run out of women, you betcha. So
that will be soon, I'm hoping.
I don't think so. So I've known you like all my life, right? But I'm sure there's tons of things that I don't know. So like, for example, I don't know where you were born.
Oh, in Edmonton.
You were born in Edmonton?
I was born in Edmonton, yeah.
Did you grow up there?
I did grow up in Edmonton, went to high school there, went to U of A there, and but then I met your uncle, and things fast forwarded, and then we began our journey. And so for the first 21 years of my life, I lived in Edmonton, and then from there I think we set upon about 4 other places in our journey. But Red Deer has become our home and has been our home for 40 years. And when your uncle suggested that we make this move, I don't think I was too thrilled with it. I was pretty settled in Rocky Mountain House, like the small town life. And but business-wise, I knew that it was a good decision for us. And so we packed up, 4 little kids, and moved to Red Deer, and have never regretted it. It was one of the most impactful decisions your uncle came up with, and I am thrilled that we did do this move.
So how did you meet him?
Interesting. I worked for his brother, another one of your uncles, in a summer job while I was going to university, and he happened to come in and do some contract work for your Uncle Al. And so we happened to meet there, and and it's a funny story that will be long live. Your Uncle Terry and your Uncle Reg have 2 different stories about this, but anyways, I'm not sure how it happened. I was supposed to go out with your Uncle Terry, ended up with your Uncle Reg, and the rest is history.
Yeah. How many years have you been married?
Next week will be 48.
48.
So,
well, congratulations
48.
on that. And you
Thank
have
you very
one.
much.
You have one sibling, right?
I have one sibling, yes, a sister. So it was definitely a learning curve for me to come into a family of 11 siblings, and I had one and no brothers. I only had a sister. So as the Radford family heavy on the boys' side.
Very.
We were heavy on the girls' side, so it was
Yeah.
definitely a learning curve for me.
Oh, I can't imagine going from, one sibling to all of those and like just, yeah.
Well,
And
culturally we had to really make a leap also. They grew up on an urban farm, a quarter section of land in very rural Manitoba. I grew
very
up in what you would call at that time the metropolis of Edmonton, which was, in Toronto.
right.
But
Yeah.
still, it was an urban life, right? I grew up in an urban life. And so, although we had connections to the rural community, because my parents both came from rural community, my mother grew up on a farm, and my father grew up in a very small village right near that farm. We had that connection, but still, my growing up was significantly different than your uncle's growing up, and so it was an interesting transition between the two of us.
Oh, I can't even imagine. What roles did your parents hold in your family and in the community of Edmonton?
Well, really, it's interesting that my parents didn't really get really involved, but they did get somewhat involved in the community. And so my mom had the traditional homemaker's role. She did go out to work after I had left home. That she went out to work. My sister is 5 years younger than me, so there was that gap there. And my mom decided she wanted to go out in the world and work. My father, it really interesting. My father had a grade 8 education, and he worked himself up from. He got his mechanics tradesperson, and he worked himself up from the mechanics tradesperson into being a general manager of a very large trucking manufacturer in Canada, which in
Okay.
itself tells you about my father. My father was, if you had saw him, you would have never described him as being someone that was earning to manage or to lead, and you'd have never thought of him. He was quite a mild personality. Everybody loved my father, and but yet he made that journey, and very did it in a very respectful way. And so that was so interesting to think about. Now then you think about, when I think about my life and I think about their life, unfortunately my father passed away at a very young age. Well,
Yeah.
I find it young now, considering he was 57 when he passed away, and looking at my age now at 70, I think that I can't imagine. And my mom was widowed at that time and never did remarry. That was her one true life
Yeah.
heart. And I, at the time, you never thought of it. You always thought, well, Mom, do you want to get somebody else? But no, she never did. And so that was, to me, we lived a true love story. Our life was, our life wasn't easy, by no
Right.
means.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have a lot, and it took, years to build. But to me, theirs was a true love story.
Yeah, my dad speaks very positively about your dad. I don't think I ever had the pleasure of meeting him, and I would have been very small at the time, but
You
my
would have
dad
been small,
always,
yeah.
yeah, my dad always spoke very, very positively of him. Yeah.
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 He was it was a very kind and humorous man. And so
Yeah.
I mean, I sometimes I got a little bit more of my mom in me, but I do have my relationship with people is probably my dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting how that happens. And so my next question was, you've led businesses, boards, capital campaigns, but who were you before all of that? Like, you took a degree at U of A, so University of Alberta, right? And so what's your
Yeah.
degree in?
Well, I'm a teacher. I've got my teaching degree, and my specialty was phys ed and social studies. And so, so I was able to use I used my degree, not able to use, but used my degree, and I taught for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years. Once we had 4 children, it just did not, and a business, it just didn't become feasible for me to be spending the time trying to teach. And of course, we had the philosophy, if a business isn't making money by a certain time, then you're in the wrong business. And so at that point, it became more important that I supported in the support role. rather than the actual hands-on. So for those first few years, I didn't really actually go that much into the business. I did a lot of the tax piece of it and learned a lot of that sort of thing, and doing the marketing and that sort of thing for the companies. But I didn't physically day in operations. I wasn't that much. And of course, we have the standing joke. We both wanted to be bosses, so we had to figure that one out. So your uncle took the hands-on daily operations, and I took the bigger vision and looking at the support things, of which taxes and things like that happen. I mean, having my own business, eventually when we moved to Red Deer at that same time, it's interesting. And those are the kind of things I realized that I think are innate in people. And I didn't realize that they're not really innate. You either sometimes have it or you don't have it. But I went to find a play school for our third daughter, Ashley, to join. And when we moved to Red Deer, and I realized that there wasn't that much. And I had been helping run the play school in Rocky Mountain House, and I loved the teacher there. So I said to her, hey, what do you think of us opening up a play school in Red Deer? And we did, and it's Ashley and Friends, it was called. And believe it or not, it's still running.
Really?
Like 40 years later. I mean, a couple of different owners, but it's still running, and it's, yeah. And, you can't imagine how many people say, that's the Ashley, when they see, my 40-year-old Ashley now, and say, that's the Ashley from Ashley and Friends. Yeah. So awesome.
And I always look at, so having run, and been part of a variety of different businesses in my lifetime, the effect of your community work on your businesses, right? So I think you actually were doing business development that whole time with all of the community work that you were doing, right? Like, I think community work is very important because I think it's important to be a good citizen where you live, where you make an income, is to put back into that community, right? And so my mother shares that, so I'm sure I got some of that from her as well. But, I think like your business success is directly tied to your success as a community leader. Do you think that's true? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And it's so interesting. And this is the interesting, watching the evolution of that. So when I insisted on us doing several things through the business, it was something your uncle didn't understand. And it was some deep discussions that happened, how important that I felt this was for us to do that. And today, I actually had to move up into our common area to take this call, because today your uncle is sitting with a renovations team. We just we are in the middle of a project together to build a permanent shelter for our homeless and change the dynamics of how our shelter, how we treat our homeless in our community. And he is sitting down working on the renovations team, and we're together on that. Like, I would have never been able to talk him into this, 35 years ago, how important this was that we are involved in this.
Yep.
And yet today he is fully committed to it. And it was just, and I mean, I'm not going to say it was, but it was just from the background he came, even though he helped in the community, they tried, their life for the first 20 years was survival.
Yep.
It wasn't about, they were bailing, surviving. 11 children on a quarter section or a little bit more of land. Sure, they had some food, but every bit of food you ate meant it was food that you couldn't sell.
Yes.
And I mean, when you honestly think about the survival skills, so it took them a while, and that's where I say the cultural differences happened.
If you even look at that and look at our communities now, because we also have, a significant population of unhoused folks in our community here in Brandon, Manitoba. But if you look at the people that, are surviving and living in that, the time they would have to contribute to their community would be less, right? So those of us who aren't on a fixed income, those of us who are reaping the rewards of, business in those communities, I think, I really do think it's an obligation for us to give back in some way with our time and talent to the betterment of those communities. Yeah. I seriously believe that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, like, as we progress through it all, I just recognized opportunities upon opportunities that nonprofits or community nonprofits mainly, were not taking advantage of some smart business decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that got you into more. And I think that is so important for business people to be able to see that their skill sets are actually needed in the nonprofit world.
I agree. Yeah.
On the flip side of it is, business people also have to listen to the nonprofit people and what their realities are and how they can manage. So change what you can in increments. They cannot make big change. So incrementally, you have to present opportunities for them to see how efficiently it works. Once in a while, you come across a very strong CEO or executive director that can move with the pivoting, can figure it out. But more and time and time again, you have to help them make the change and see the change.
Well, and I think it's imperative that you have that relationship between the business sector and the not-for-profit sector, right? Because I think if you have all not-for-profit people sitting around the table, then, there's just a different way you think, right? And you just see things completely differently. And so the infusion of that kind of business or entrepreneur or whatever mentality you want to call that, I think makes a huge difference to how those boards operate and the success of those not-for-profits as well. I think,
Absolutely.
I think it's imperative to the health of the community, actually. Yeah, absolutely. So, I just wanted to go back a little bit. We were talking about some of the roles you played in your businesses. You did the taxes and you did those kinds of things. And, girls and women, although we have equal math abilities to boys and we outperform them, there seems to be a perception, like I know women that I've employed, I know my stepdaughter Piper, I know myself even, right, that we're not good at math. We just automatically believe that, right? And I remember saying to Piper, well, why do you think you're not good at math? Like, and actually she was very, very good at math. So what are those things like that drove those, those stereotypes, that anxiety and that, but in businesses, oftentimes women fulfill those very roles that growing up we felt that we didn't have any acumen for. So why do you think you went into that role? Because you came through the teaching, right? So how did fiscal responsibility become so paramount for you?
Yeah, well, that's the big thing now. And I think we talk about math, and when we think about math, we think of calculus and we think of trig and we think of all of those. And I mean, I would say I would probably be the first one that would say that that wouldn't be my first like, and I'm not sure how well. That would be a bear, pass and go. That would be my philosophy at that time.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about financial literacy. Financial literacy is a whole different ballgame as far as I'm concerned. I have watched accountants sit on boards and not see that we were in trouble.
Yeah.
Because accountants are their education is meant to look at things after it's happened.
Yeah.
Not project what's going to happen. They can project what they have seen, what the list of numbers and what the numbers do. But they don't see what can happen, and they don't calculate risk. And that's another thing that you have to do as a business person and as being part of a nonprofit building. You have to calculate risk. And here's an example of calculate risk. This is a funny story going back to back in I can't even remember, late 90s, I was watching my daughter, who was in gymnastics at the time, but they're in a warehouse, and she was a trampoline and tumbler, but she was a tumbler. So I come to pick her up, and as I drive into the parking lot, here are mats out in the parking lot at 25 below. And in order for them to train, they had to run through the parking lot, hit the man door, because when they hit the man door, they had to start the tumbling run, or they wouldn't have had enough room to complete the tumbling run.
Oh my gosh.
And that's how they train for competition. Well, in my head, now this is where the business head comes. We got to do something better than that. We got to do something better than that. So, of course, this is the first part of the story. Now I'll get to the second part of the story. I go to the board and I said, this is nuts. The municipality should be building us a building. We have over 2,000 people come through this facility. And I said, and this is all we have, but we have numerous arenas. We have numerous other sport facilities, predominantly configured for males. right? Male sport,
Yep.
right?
Male
drove,
sport.
Drove me
Hockey.
nuts. Gymnastics was predominantly female sport, right? It drove me nuts. So I get on my little research and I go to the city of Red Deer and I go right to the superintendent of recreation. And I said, I want you to build a gymnastics facility on this piece of land. And I said, and we will help you do it. The gymnastics club will come up with some money.
Yep.
And we will help you do it. And he kind of, give me that nice smile and says, you know what, I have one of my co-workers down the hall. Just go have a conversation with him. I mean, obviously I got shuffled
off.
to the junior person, right?
Yep.
And so, but anyways, that's interesting. I worked on them, not for long. And within a year, we had commitment to go to this, to build this multi facility, right where I wanted it, between the two high schools that were going on there. But it was interesting that they've shuffled. The superintendent and us, we always have a good laugh over it because he says, Lyn, he says, little did I know what a whirlwind you were going to be in our community when you walked into my office.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so so anyways, now I got the gym club all hyped up, but now I got to raise some money.
Yeah.
So one of the methods to raise money in our community was casinos, of course.
Right.
So I went down and got us on the list for casinos, and I was doing the paperwork for the casino, and the casino guy was telling us, well, there's this insurance, and maybe you should take this insurance because they've lost several community groups have lost money in the last, I don't know, I mean, let's say 6 weeks, and anyways, and I said, oh, really? How much is the insurance? And I think he said it was $1,100 or $1,000, which at that time, we're talking about 30 years ago, was, a significant piece of change. So I went back to our board and I said, okay, I think we should take the insurance and I think we should not go into the pool because I think we're going to make money. And they all looked at me. You could have seen, no, these are people that, it's beyond their thought that any of this is going to happen. Who is this lady who comes in and thinks they can build us a new facility, who thinks we can raise money, and now she's telling me that we should just take the insurance and risks and not go in the pool and share our money with anybody. Well, anyways, I think it was pretty close to a majority, but not quite a majority motion approval. And so then I went back to the casino. I said, we're not going to go in the pool. Dead silence. What do you mean you're not going in the pool? No, I don't think we're going to go into the pool. We'll just take our chances. If we get nothing, we get nothing. Here's our insurance money if we lose the money. Well, Lord and behold, didn't we score big on that casino? And
really?
Yeah, we did. And I mean, big at that time was $25,000 or $30,000.
Yeah, but still.
But it gave us, that impetus that people started to believe.
Yeah.
So, and that's, one time I saw a video about how a movement happens. And a movement happens is one person has an idea, me.
Yeah.
And then you need to have a second person buy into it. And pretty soon they get up and get on. And pretty soon that person gets somebody. And pretty soon now you've got a whole bunch that believe it. Well, now I've got a whole gymnastics club starting to believe that we could honestly have a dedicated facility, and it was mostly for girls.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And in the year 2000, we opened that facility. And I also talked the municipality into loaning us our portion of the money.
Really?
And so, I talked them into loaning us, and we made facility payments for 15 years. I think we were supposed to go 15, and we had to push it out. There was a little bit of drop or something. 17 years, they paid off that facility, and today, they only pay utilities on that facility.
So they're self-sustaining.
They're self-sustaining. And that's another big belief. And we can talk about that. That's another big belief that I have always had. Whoever asks the municipality for something, you have to have some skin in the game.
Yep.
It's not fair to the rest of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And so I've always lived by that facility and that philosophy, and that's what's happening now. That's kind of how it just kept rolling.
So how did you know how to fundraise? Because you also did the Ronald McDonald House, which I think was like, was it 18 million or is that what it was?
Yeah, we
And
raised
you spearheaded
14
that.
million. Yeah, 14 million in 15 months.
So how
And
did you just fell into this and just knew how to do it?
yeah, you know what? I guess when you've been asked for money at the same time as you're fundraising, you soon learn the objectives on both sides, and you
Yeah.
cater to those. You know, so who's your clientele that you're asking money from, and how can they feel ownership in what you're asking the money for? And
Which
that's what
also,
you have to marry.
which also lends to why you want business people on your boards, right?
Totally.
Because they're the
Well, for
ones
those
getting asked for
connections.
money. Yeah. And they're the ones getting
Exactly.
asked for money, so they understand what's tangible that they would be looking for as well, right? What that
And
benefit
you
would be.
don't realize how many times in a community that people have wealth, but they've never been asked to contribute.
Hmm.
And sometimes people have to be asked to be involved, to contribute. And they realize they don't want to spend the time doing it, but they don't mind parting with some of their treasure.
Yeah.
And my best philosophy, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, and combine that with one of my mentors told me, you have to thank a donor 7 times in 7 different ways. And
Ooh.
I've always lived by that.
That's a great.
So it could be a
yeah.
handwritten note, it could be an email, it could be a verbal thanks, it could be an acknowledgement in full, publicly. But find 7 ways to acknowledge that donor, and you'll have them back.
That's a very good nugget. That's a very good nugget. I was just going to ask you, do you, like, we find like we're a smaller community than Red Deer, but I think there's kind of a perception that the same people get asked all the time for money, right? That everybody goes to because they've given money before, or they have some sort of notoriety or whatever that is, right? And so how do you find the people? I'm going to assume you're going to say through your boards and stuff that want to give, but maybe have been skipped over for some reason.
You know, it's really interesting. That's probably been a focus of mine for about 5 or 6 years now. Trying to make sure I can broaden that pool of money. And, in my experience, I've been lucky enough that I'm probably at the generational level that I can pretty well pick out who has done well in, through their working life or in their business life, and who hasn't. And I mean, we often miss sometimes the agricultural industry. So I really break it down into segments, into sectors. Okay, what has this sector done for us? Has the insurance sector done something for us? Have the banking sector done something for us? Has the accounting firms? Has the legal firms? Has the agricultural people? How about the manufacturing people in your community? Start breaking down your sectors, and you will soon see that there are 1 or 2 nuggets in those sectors that have never been touched and needed to be asked. And they need to be curated. I can tell you, I can say I have curated some for 30 years, and they've come to the table. But you got to hit on what is important to them.
And that takes time and relationship.
That takes time and relationships. I mean, pretty soon, in Red Deer, the laughing comment, and everybody knows it right from Rotary, everybody knows it. And the laughing comment is, if Radford phones you for a glass of wine, be ready to give your time and your treasure. So.
Well, that works. That's okay.
Yeah, and the same with volunteering and with time, and I often try to make sure my volunteers are well treated. And they all feel that everybody wants to be on the inner circle, so you got to make them all feel that they're on the inner circle.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. So how did you do all of that community work while doing like the taxes and those kind of non-operational but governance kind of things in your business? Because you guys had more than one business at a time often, and you had 4 kids that were all heavily involved in different sports and things like that. So how did you manage your time to be able to do that?
Well, I think, first of all, I probably lived on 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Most of my life. So now I don't sleep in. Like,
Still,
I might go to bed early,
Yeah.
but I don't sleep in because I just knew that, it's in my head, 6 o'clock, 5:30, I have to be up. Because first time I wanted, I really believed in my own physical health. too.
Yep.
So I worked out. So whether it was running or something all the time, and I really believe that that's a very important factor that this day that I still try to push on my daughters and make them understand.
Yep.
And they're getting it. They're in their 40s now and they're getting it. But, I really, really have pushed on that physical factor that you have. If you don't take care of that, you're not going to take care of you're not going to be good to anybody.
I'm absolutely agreed. Yep.
But honestly, I probably shorted the sleep, which in hindsight, I'm not sure that was always the best thing either,
Yeah.
So, but very organized. I had lists upon lists and everything at a spot. And
Yep.
sometimes I was a little bit too, sergeant major. Sometimes I think about that with my raising my kids. I think about that, and I, could have been a little less on that point, but it was important to me,
Yep.
that these things are important, and they needed to understand this. It not only helped me, it mostly helped them. Most of the things I did for those early years was to make things better for them, or their cohorts in whatever sport they were in,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Driven by
so,
intention.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, do you have regrets? You always have regrets. Did you could do things
Always.
better? Hindsight is, perfect, right? But
Yes.
going forward. But so far, feel pretty good on how everything has turned out. We were successful in business.
Yep.
I feel we were successful in raising children.
Yep.
Each of them, have their times,
Agreed.
but they in themselves are now strong community members. I feel we've been successful in the community. I feel that I
Yeah.
actually can say I tried to leave, or I did leave the world in a better place than when I came into it. So that's always
Yeah.
been my philosophy.
Yeah, what a gift, really, right? It's imperative, I think, when you do those things and you take those things on, that your intention is all about the betterment of something else. And I think that makes the long days or the lack of sleep or whatever, all those jumbling things around, makes it rewarding in some way for you to be able to do that, right? And I think that's the sign of a true leader, is when you look outside of yourself and it's the betterment of something else, whether it's your community, your kids, your staff, whatever that is that's what helps you rise, right? Is seeing the reward of other people and how they flourish, or places.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
so.
and I think nowadays, I'm still working quite a few, but I count myself so lucky to be able to work with some talented, intelligent young people now. Like, it is just amazing to watch. And as I look back now, if I can look back and think that I either motivated or mentored these young people that are coming up, that I know that one day when my work is done, it's going to continue, and just in a different way, or a different shape. But that's the amazing part to me. I just love watching this happen.
That must feel very rewarding.
It feels more rewarding than all the real awards I get. I have to tell you that. And I've been blessed with recognition so much. People have been outstanding. I just sometimes it's a bit embarrassing, but I am just being so blessed with the recognition. But I'm more excited. I'm just as excited as people that take up the call and are working through and doing things for the community.
So you were the first solo chairperson of the Canada Games Host Committee for Red Deer, right? So did you feel the weight of being the first? Like, were there things that came with that you just thought, I got to do this a certain way because I'm the first woman?
I don't think so. But I'll tell you why. Because I've been quite fortunate in my years. I'm going to go back a little bit, Tanya. In the beginning years, you don't get the respect. I sat in many rooms with men who looked down on me because, and then I started deliberately misleading them. I got to tell you that. I would deliberately. So I'd sit down and you'd be at a table, it'd be a think tank table or whatever, and they'll say, you go around and introduce yourself, and these people are, I've got this designation, I got that designation. And they'd come to me and I'd say, I'm a housewife, I'm raising 4 children and I support my husband's business. And it would be these dead looks of people looking at me. What the heck is she doing here? Like, she, what's going on here? And you could see them usually looking at the facilitator or at the organizer of this meeting, wondering why I'm there. And, and so that perception, I lived through that many times.
Yeah, I can
But you know what?
imagine.
I think my background gave me the skills to help. So I am in Métis, as we talked about.
Yeah.
I remember being very proud of this fact at school, but it got turned on me, of course, and being called a half-breed and whatever. And, so I think it didn't bother me anymore. Like, it doesn't bother me. I just think, I'm going to prove you wrong, and you're going to be wanting to work for me.
Yeah.
And I did that.
Yeah.
And I feel okay about that. And but I have to say, when it came to the Canada Games, I had a phenomenal amount of support from the male side. No, we're not the leaders. She's the leader. She needs to be the leader. We do not have half of her skill sets. They all knew that they had skill sets, but there's a gentleman like Hugh McPherson and our CEO Scott Robinson and all of those people who actually came to the table and said, Lyn's the one who has to decide on that or will guide us on that one. And, that was the thing. But, it took several years to get that type of respect.
I can imagine.
It shouldn't have, But, so sometimes our hardest lessons when we're children are our best character builders when we're later, and having that lesson about being a half-breed or, people making fun of me because I openly claim that I was Indigenous. And at that time it was, you use the word Indian, but, but I got that spirit from my mom. My mom never let herself be looked down upon because that's what she was. And she encouraged us. She knew education was the key to getting it out. And she, I can remember her scraping the tuition out for for me to go. I could remember going, I was young. I graduated young. And I can remember having to go to the registrar's office and having that time what we call the family checks, your family checks that you would get. And nowadays it's just, you get it through other ways. But I remember having that sign saying I was in school so I could still receive it. That would help with tuition.
So your Korean Métis heritage came through your mother?
Through my mother, yes.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, my grandmother was full, but I never got to know my biological grandmother because she died in childbirth when she was having my uncle. My mom was 3. Ooh. But we maintained our connection. Was my mother would go 2 or 3 times a year and spend a week or a few days with her grandmother, which was Cree Indian, and who was raising also her brother because my grandfather did not keep her brother. It was hard enough to keep 2 little girls. I had an aunt also at the time, and so she would go, and that. My mom had a strong connection with her grandmother, and thereby we had a strong connection with our great-grandmother, and was there. So we would go to pilgrimage, like we would go and visit her. She did phenomenal beadwork, and I mean nowadays we would just wish. And it's kind of neat to watch my children now. My children got to experience some, probably not as much as I did, and probably not as much as their kids, because it is wonderful now. The school programs have actual Indigenous programs happening in school, and our grandchildren have been going through that. They call them land counts, and they actually get to go and do the traditional native things like skinning the hides and getting the hunter's course and learning how to live off the land, and so it's making a tremendous full circle, which I'm very, very happy that they have embraced that.
Did you ever feel like you were representing more than just yourself, like as a woman, as an Indigenous person, as a leader? Like, did you feel like you were representing masses of people, or when you took on all of these large responsibilities?
A little bit, but I'm going to say that not a lot, and I think that's probably be my persona for the rest, for all my life is that, first of all, you have to believe in yourself. I believed I can do that. I could do it. I believed that I could, I believe there were going to be hard days, and I believe there were going to be decisions that I may not want to make, but I'm going to have to make it. And with the most knowledge as I could have to make that decision, I would need to gather. But I believed I could make that decision. And I believe that I'm not alone. And so that was where I said, where you have your support network. So, you know, you soon learn the people that have knowledge in that type of area that can support you. So my vice chair, Hugh McPherson, was amazing. You know, so he was very good. He is not a risk taker like me. And so that was very good. I love having people that are not risk takers around me, because it makes me think. And quite often we were just talking about that, and I would say, doesn't matter what board I'm on, I choose somebody that I know that I really don't want to hear their opinion, but I should.
That's true, right? You need that balance, right? You need that dichotomy.
You absolutely need. That's exactly right, Tanya.
Yeah.
And I really feel that that's important. So did I feel like, I think as a woman, I was feeling that I should represent that. As an Indigenous person, that was a very hard one to deal with. And not because I don't believe in my Indigenous identity, I was very much forefront. That is very difficult to deal with the Indigenous community. And of course, having been raised mostly colonial versus, even though I know the elements of the Indigenous life, I was raised mostly colonial with colonial aspirations, right? Yeah. So that has been a difficult one. I'm still balancing it day in, day out. I mean, I've had a couple of Indigenous women attack me, you know, verbally about how I don't understand. Who am I to make decisions for them? It wasn't that we were making decisions for them. We couldn't get them to come to help us make decisions. We would even go to them and try to help make decisions. And we thought we had a decision, and 2 days later we find out that the decision was wrong, and for some reason we did something wrong. You know, so that was a very difficult at the stage with Canada Games of dealing with it. I think people are getting a better handle on it, and I also feel that the Indigenous community are getting a better handle on it also. It's coming. It has a long ways to evolve.
Yeah, I think there's more trust now, right? That is, exactly. That I think is imperative to those relationships, right? And you know, rightfully so. They probably were a bit gun shy with us, right? Like, you know, so,
and us coming in, trying to tell them how to do things, or what they could do or what they couldn't do. I mean, you know, they had people telling them all that life, and didn't all turn out very well for them, did it? You know, so.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, you kind of said people make assumptions, right? Like, you're sitting at the table and I'm a housewife and I'm this and I'm that. And, you know, and so everybody comes to an understanding quickly in their mind that, well, she has nothing to offer, right? And probably similar with Indigenous people in lots of circumstances, right? So here you kind of have both of those things that you're facing, and you just walked into it, right? And you're just like, this is who I am. And you're able to contribute at a high level. And so I would say as a woman, you did a lot of work for all of those other women coming behind you that they didn't have to necessarily have those conversations. Maybe they don't count those women out so quickly just because they're a homemaker, when essentially they're running their own business as their home, you know, 99% of the time, right? Like, I mean, they're doing money and food and transportation and activity. And like, I mean, this is, you know, they're running a bubble kind of thing, right? And managing all kinds of schedules and stuff. So,
well, and the multitasking that happens,
laundry.
And exactly. Well, and, you know, and it's been really good. In our relationship with your uncle and I, we recognize our skill sets. I recognize, you know, your uncle knows how to fix things. He has a bigger vision. He's a very high vision thinker, which is great, and I buy into. But then he wants somebody to do it.
Yeah.
For years I did it, you know. But I mean, that was okay because I had the skill set. I recognize now that I have the organization skill set. He does not have that in his mind. Yep. He cannot organize. I finally got him making lists. And that is a development, you know, and a big concern. But he was very used to saying, I need this done.
Yeah.
I need this done to his staff, and they would execute, right?
Yep.
So when he retired, he comes home and says, I need this photocopy. Yeah, well, the photocopy is over there. Go find it. But and that's probably why our relationship worked out, because I would challenge him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, for sure.
You think this is my job or this is your job, and so but I think but that's on a board or in a nonprofit organization, that is exactly what's happening. You have people that have really good skill sets, use their skill sets.
Yes.
And then for the most part, you're going to be able to have a very successful outcome on that.
Yeah. I always tell my team, I always say, listen, I don't need a team of pitchers. That's not what I'm looking for. I don't want somebody who can just pitch a game, right? I need infielders, outfielders. I need I need a good catcher. I need everybody who understands the game, but has different skill sets that can contribute to us winning the game, right? So I don't need a team of pitchers.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And that's what we always said. Our kids couldn't come work for us for many years.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to learn what I know already. I already know that. I need you to come back with skill sets that you've learned from others that can make us better.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever failed really, just spectacularly publicly?
I think in some, nothing does, I've failed,
Oh, sure.
but I gotta say that part of my skill set is I failed, but I figure out the best solution to make that failure a win.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably more what I would say, have I made the wrong decisions? Oh, yes, definitely. Have I taken a risk maybe when I shouldn't have? But when I've taken that risk, I've also, if it's failed, I have had to come back and help fix or help with the solution to make it right again. I think that that's what I've always done. But I can't really give you an example. And
That's
it's
okay.
a little scary. I got to tell you, it's scary. That was scary at times, because you think, how long can I keep going with this? Coming up with seemingly, we're in a situation right now in our community when I spoke earlier about our homelessness situation. Well, 3 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce came and asked me to lead. And I knew that we had a problem and that it was a developing problem in our community. And in my mind, it was bugging me. It was hurting me. It was hurting me that I didn't have a solution in our community. But I really felt that it wasn't my space. And I really felt that people are going to say, oh, here goes Radford. Now she's in our space and she thinks she's going to fix it all up. I worry about that, And so anyways, the Chamber of Commerce came to me 3 years ago and said to me, we feel our situation's getting bad. We feel the business community needs to get involved in this situation. We don't know how. So what we want to do is we will support a task force that will look into, do a third-party assessment of what's happening in our community to it. And we want you to lead it. Wow.
Hi.
I had just come off a very successful 2019 gains.
Yep.
We made money. We built facilities.
Yeah.
That was great. And now someone's coming to me with a problem that nobody else has been able to solve or even have an incremental positive impact. I thought, holy crap, how can I do this? And finally I said, I can't sit at my kitchen table and bitch about a situation or think I know about it and talk about it with my friends unless I really know about it. So, okay, I have to take this on. Went and talked to your uncle. Your uncle said, oh, I don't know. But I said, yeah, I know. It's like political suicide sometimes, right? So anyways, I took it on, but I knew that we had some very caring, compassionate members of our community, and I got them involved. And you know what? It fast forward, and we produced a report a year later on what was happening. We had this detailed report of what we heard, and this is what we think was some resolutions. And one of them is that we felt that we needed a foundation, a homeless foundation that was separate from all the agencies that really the agencies were not involved in, but they oversaw the agencies, a third party sort of thing, so that because agencies are also in survival mode. So they make decisions on survival mode. They don't make decisions on data. They make some decisions on data, but a lot of emotional decisions. And that is not how I'm going to move this needle forward. And so one of them was that, and it was the fragmentation in the community, fragmentation in the governments, how they're handling it. That I don't think we'll ever resolve that. But anyways, but I really felt that we needed to do this. But I was ready to hand over the report and said, I've done my work. And me and a committee member said, we can't leave this. We can't do this. We got to form this foundation. But we realized that we needed to bring in some smart, strong people behind us on this also, the next generation. We can build a foundation for them. They're going to be the ones that execute it. So we built the foundation. We got the foundation going. The foundation didn't have a lot of respect in the community yet because, of course, once again, who are these people thinking that they can come in and solve something? We work in this every day. And,
I can't solve it,
Nate. So anyways, but they can't solve it because they're so busy with boots on the ground that they can't take the time for the vision and to figure out a solution. So
they're sitting in the middle of it. Yeah.
Totally. So anyways, we got the foundation going, and just as we got the foundation going, this other lady, Kathy Lacey, and myself, we got our husbands involved thinking about this and what are we going to do. And Peter, her husband's a great researcher. Reg is, he's pragmatic, and I love that. So he comes in saying, well, why aren't we using these empty warehouses to get more homes? And they're all talking. And we realized that we had this piece of property in Red Deer that had just, the company unfortunately had gone bankrupt, PV Mart, but it was their distribution center. And their distribution center was sitting on this parcel of land, 12 acres of land, over 200,000 square foot facility, and is empty and is for sale. So we have put together, this is what was our last thing that just happened last week. We brought people together, investors, to buy this building that eventually is going to go over to the Homeless Foundation. And we got rezoning last week approved after a brutal public hearing because, of course, NIMBY really factored into it, But it was one of these, like, do I carry this on or do I just stop when I'm ahead, So anyway, so now we're building, now we're working on getting all the agencies together and hoping to get them all together down at the shelter and fast forward, well, hopefully, but I think we've moved the needle a little bit again. But you worry about it. You worry about that.
Do you ever?
When am I going to be and make a bad decision?
Yeah. Do you ever worry that community work or those kinds of emotional situations will affect your businesses, or would have when you had your businesses? I know you sold them, but
oh, absolutely, and it does. It does. We know one investor that won't be able to participate now because. He has been approached about it. Yeah.
So I think
our business wasn't retail. Our businesses weren't retail as much. Retail, that's a bigger risk for them than ours. Ours, we're a wholesaler. We used to distribute. So I wouldn't have thought that would risk. But I mean, we've had our opportunities where, we've been slammed because our business has been slammed because we didn't support the particular political party that was the flavor of the day or something, and but you have to live through it. You have to stick to your principles, and that's probably more your discussion right now is integrity. Integrity and sticking to your principles and recognizing that you are going to be ostracized by people because you believe on a certain thing. But if it's the right thing and you work on it and you research, eventually you will prevail.
I agree. Yeah, I do think the win wins out, and I think you have to, like you said, stick to your principles, right? And just people aren't going to agree with you all the time, and that's okay. I mean, that's I just had a political conversation with two friends of mine a couple of days ago that we do not agree on, but we're still very, very good friends, right? And we can have those conversations, and I think that's really, really important because I learn a little bit more about their side, right? And they learn a little bit more about my side. Yeah. So
I agree with that, and that's why the Canada Games, to me, I'm such a promoter of Canada Games. But and you got me involved in that, Tanya, actually, and I believe the Canada Games is the one tool that we have at our disposal as a country to bring us back unified rather than keep the division going.
I agree. I think it's a phenomenal event for communities, and for our youth and amateur athletes, and giving them exposure to a larger stage and all those different kinds of things. I hope it never ever goes away. Never goes away.
Yeah, and I wish, I sincerely hope, wish that our federal and our provincial
Yeah.
partners can honestly see that this is truly, they have a tool here that they could just use so well,
So well.
in promoting this so well. There's just so many things that could happen there.
Yeah. Yeah. The human capital value that's left in those communities from the experiences that people had is it's just massive, right? And I don't know if they think about that, right? How can communities go on and use all of that in-house talent now that they have, right? That have had these different exposures to all these things. It's gold.
Well, look at yourself. You're a prime example of that. You're a prime example. I could probably tell you 10 people that work for the games and are now in very big leadership roles.
Yeah.
That they probably never would have got to, or it would have taken them longer had they not been part of the games.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
a great experience.
Stronger for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they actually have settled. Some of them moved to Red Deer thinking that they were there for the games time, and said, no, we're not leaving this community. And now I've got partners and are making their family life there. And that's a bonus too. Yeah.
Especially when you can keep the talent, for sure. So you have received honors, like the Alberta Sport Hall of Fame, the Alberta Order of Excellence, and I think there's a couple of other ones. I think you were Citizen of the Year, if I'm correct on that, and Red Deer. So when you receive those, I mean, those are huge, huge things, right? So what kind of emotions did you feel when you found out you'd been, selected to be inducted into the Hall of Fame or given the Order of Excellence or things like that?
In a sense, there was a bit, of course you're happy, and it's always thrilled, but that is, like everybody will tell you, that isn't why you do it. But you have a little bit of sadness also. And the sadness is that you didn't get there yourself.
Right.
You had a group of people around you supporting you, believing in you, being that second person that stood up and agreed to you, or that third or that fourth person. And those are the people, and you're so afraid of missing out, recognizing somebody's support of that. And that, it is a very heavy responsibility to me. To me, it's a huge responsibility, because in both those senses, like probably the most recent one was the Alberta Order of Excellence. And you have to give a 3-minute speech, and you have to talk about it. And it's very difficult to talk, especially, when you think of the length of my community career, to talk about in 3 minutes all the people that you've touched, or who you've been touched by. And I feel that's probably my biggest sadness or regret when I receive those awards, is honestly portraying to people that there's multitudes of people that help you get there. You're not the only one. You have the idea. You're willing to work very hard into getting the project off the going. You're that person. You're that central person. But it just doesn't happen by yourself. There are multitudes of people. And if anybody's listening, I just hope they will understand how grateful I am for them in my life, both personally and for the community.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
Well said. So when your children describe you, what do you hope they say?
Don't cross mom.
Fair.
And if I have to cross her, then I have to come up with a reason why what I'm saying is better.
Negotiation. What about your grandchildren? How would they describe you?
That grandma gave them lots of opportunity to do lots of things.
And what about my Uncle Reg? How would he describe you?
Probably the same as the girls, don't cross her. But I think your Uncle Reg would describe me as very hard sometimes, because I can be stubborn, as he can be. But
sure.
But recognizing that, honestly, but we've grown through our life. And once we recognize that one or the other is off kilter, finding out why and making and helping make it better,
Yeah.
or if they can. So
Choosing to evolve together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Together. Yeah.
So I know you and your mom were very, very close. Would you say that she was strong?
Oh, my mom was a phenomenal, strong person. When and then of course she's been passed now, and it's hard to believe it's been 66 years that she has passed. But when I think of what my mother had to go through in life and what she gave us, it's just an amazing thing. First of all, being a Métis, in her day, it was definitely a half-breed.
Yep.
That my mom was also dyslexic, of which several of which I one and a half of my children probably got.
Yep.
But a few grandchildren have, and so that made things very difficult for my mom. So she had difficult learning, but she was able to get her secretarial schooling when she was 16. It was, thank goodness, her father saw the need for her to get that and to help her out, and I think she had to go through life the things she had to learn to just give us a better life. I think it was phenomenal. When I think of what she had to learn, it's mind-boggling. I'm educated, and her education was not of that skill, and she navigated things that it was unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, undoubtedly, she was very, very proud of you. So what is one lesson or nugget of information that she gave you that helped you build on that and have your own strength?
Oh, education. Two things.
Education.
Education and relationships. My parents had lots of friends. They knew how to maintain relationships, but they were caring people. People that were around my parents always looked up to them to be the ones that would help them out in need. And it wouldn't have necessarily, have to be monetary need. I mean, my mom often would cook meals and take over to somebody just so that they would have a meal. She would often buy groceries. If somebody was down and out and she knew they were down and out, she would take things out of our pantry and make sure that she would take it over to them. And just in her quiet way. I mean, she drove to people around. They would come into the city and they couldn't navigate the city because they were from the rural and they needed to go to medical appointments. My mom would spend hours taking people to medical appointments. I mean, you think about it nowadays, I'm not sure I could have done that. I would, go and give up 5 hours of my day while somebody went through medical appointments.
So she was community minded too, really.
In her circle. Yeah. But in the later years, she got on board all my projects, and she volunteered for every one of them. She had a friend, Mary, and they loved, and of course it helped. I made sure that they had some very choice volunteering opportunities, but they loved volunteering, and then they would pick other stuff that I wasn't involved in. So that was wonderful to watch that evolution happen with her.
What is something that you think women should stop apologizing for?
Oh, for being smart. For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Like I find that women sometimes hide particularly with male relationships. They hide their intelligence. Stop hiding your intelligence. If they can't deal with it, then move on. You're not in the right place. That's how I always felt.
I love it.
And if you don't like your situation, you have to get yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get you out of it.
Yeah. You can't hold on to the life you have and still get the one you want. You have to make the decision.
Yeah.
And there will be loss and grief associated with it, but you just have to believe there's more on the other side, right?
Exactly.
So and I want you to finish this sentence. If you want to build something that lasts, you must be willing to
work hard. That would be my first thing. It's not going to come easy.
No.
No free lunch. Be prepared to accept setbacks and learn out of those.
Yeah.
And most of all, you need to build a community around you.
Yeah, great answer. So, to my aunt, Lyn, what stands out to me isn't just what you've done, it's certainly how you've done it: steady, thoughtful, relentless in your belief that community matters. You didn't wait for perfect timing, you don't look for applause. You saw that what needed to be built, and you went out and you built it. One decision at a time, one conversation at a time. And there's one thing your life shows us: it's perseverance is strength. And I think probably your mother also proved that to be very true. Commitment is strength. Staying when it's hard is strength. Leadership isn't a moment, it's consistency. It's showing up again tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
Your life is proof that steady effort rooted in purpose changes communities, and that kind of strength leaves a mark that lasts not only on the communities, I would say, but on all the people around you. It's been a pleasure. I do have a rapid fire ending if you're willing to take the 10 questions. We like to end with this if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go with it.
So this is adapted from James Lipton of the Actors Studio, who I used to watch all the time. And I just really appreciate these questions. Let's modify it a little bit, but what is your favorite word?
Word. I can help.
What is your least favorite word?
No.
What turns you on?
Children's laughter.
What turns you off?
Children's crying.
What sound or noise do you love?
I probably should have gone back and said children's laughter. But
Yeah. They're all good. They're all good.
they're all good.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Negativity.
What's your favorite curse word?
Oh, it has to be fuck. There is
Yeah.
no.
Right? It's just, it is the best one of the kit. Very.
So-
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, probably law. You know, I started
Yeah.
out thinking I was going to be a lawyer when I ended up being a teacher, and some days I feel I wish I had pursued it. So
Yeah. Ditto, actually. Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
oh, engineering, anything like that.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
That I left the world in a better place.
Yeah. What does strong like a girl mean about you?
Perseverance, love, and caring.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you
I've
very
really
much.
enjoyed this, and this is great. I'm so happy to do this. This has been such a labor of love for me to do this podcast, and so I'm really, really pleased. So you're going to kick off season 2 for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Well, I've so enjoyed season 1. I wanted to
Thank
tell
you.
you that. It took me a bit of time to be able to get at it, to have the time to sit and listen, but I so enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to season 2.
Find out more about today's episode and our guest in the show notes or at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca. You can leave a voice note at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca to send your stories or reactions to what we talked about today. Or maybe you know a strong girl that you think we should interview. Subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave us a review. And thank you very, very much for listening.